the 5th century of the Christian era, a philosopher arose who has been remembered as the last one whom Plato might have welcomed into his school. Boëtius, a magnificent person, came in a time in the history of Europe in the Dark Ages, was a tragic ground for thinkers, and most of those who had really important things to say perished. Boëtius was one of them. He was sentenced to death, remained for years in a lonely prison, and was finally executed. Before his death, he prepared a little work called The Consolation of Philosophy, and this has become one of the great classics of the world, where it reveals things about philosophy and wisdom that I find in no other writing, either contemporary or later. Actually, we must therefore bear in mind that Boëthius was a very devout scholar, a person of great personal integrity, who devoted most of his life to the search for truth. And every little fragment of truth he found, he served and tried to bring it to the attention of other people. Therefore, we may say definitely that he lived in love of truth, and he died in the consummation that his love had not been in vain. So we start with this problem by introducing a little part of the story of Boëthius. It seems that in this lonely stone prison, where he remained for some time before his execution, he was alone with his thoughts. He had nothing to help him or to guide him but his own inner life. He knew perfectly well that he would never be released. It was not day to day, but just when, but he knew that his death was inevitable. So with these considerations, he had nothing to fall back on but his own inner life. And realizing this and determined to live according to it, he settled down quietly to the contemplation of truth. And one night, while he was contemplating as best he could in that stone cell the wonders of life and the wonders of the universe, a great light came into his prison. And in that light appeared a magnificent figure of a woman, robed like Hypatia of Alexandria, radiant, hallowed, everything stupendous. And she came up to him and she said, "I am the one you have served. Now you are in need. I will serve you." And she explained to him very definitely that all he had learned to help other people had created for himself a debt which truth owed him, and that as long as he remained in the material world, truth would lead him, guide him, and to give him the intelligence and the wisdom and the love to face the things he had dreamed of and believed. As a result of that, his essay on the consolations of philosophy has become a classic. It was in this realization of the return of the good deed to the one who does it that Boëthius became aware of something, namely that truth is not a word. Truth is not a doctrine. Truth is not essentially a system or a school. But as all the ancients realized, truth is a living thing. It is a creature itself. It is something that has its own being. It has its own life and its own death, its own beginnings and its own ends, and in its infinitude beyond our comprehension. But truth is a conscious being, and this being appeared to Boëthius in the prison. And from this truth he learned to live from day to day. He gained then the answers to all the questions he had asked. He gained knowledge of the distant places and the high places and the low places. He learned all the mysteries of space and time. He suddenly realized that truth was a great teacher, the one thing in life that knew that truth alone could lead man to perfection. And this perfection he had to earn by giving his own life to truth. Therefore, we are able to follow some of the thinking of the ancients concerning the mysteries of life. We think of things today merely as objects. We think of hope as some kind of a word representing an emotion. We think of wisdom merely as mental penetration. We think of love as merely a personal emotion of our own, shared by others, but still merely an emotion. But to the ancients and to the wise, these so-called things were actually beings. Love, it was a reality, it was a creature, it was not merely a relationship. And from all the ancient and classical writings we find that the Greeks, the Egyptians, and Persians, and nearly all foreign peoples have personified their virtues. When they think of strength, they think of a certain power. When they think of wisdom, they think of a person who is wise. And so the ancients created gods for every emotion, every thought, every attitude of the human mind. Therefore, we have Jupiter ruling over one thing, we have Saturn ruling over something else. To us, these things are meaningless. We have a very different code. But to the ancient people, with their mystical opportunities, these different things were realities. Hope was a being, not a thing. Hope was something that grew like a child in its mother's womb. Hope was a great moment of veneration, like the individual taking holy orders. All these things were part of a being, and all great good things are beings. They are personifications or embodiments of principles, and they appear to us as a kind of language of symbolism, a language which enables us to share in the wisdom which they impart. So Boethius in his cell saw in the vision of the power of enlightened love the fulfillment of a dream, the dream of the ages. He was told by this radiant vision that she had been with him from the beginning. The moment he dedicated his life to truth, she was with him. She would be with him to the end of his days, and at the same time she would be with all others under the same conditions, because no one walks through life entirely alone, and those who have given themselves to unselfish service to others walk constantly with a radiant presence beside them, something that is going to guard them and protect them, because they have deserved it, because they have earned the peace of inner life. They will have it regardless of what happens in the outer world. This was a great consolation to Boethius. It gave him the courage and strength to know that once one dedicates themselves to the service of truth, they will never again be alone. They will be with something, someone, somewhere, who is ever and always waiting to help, waiting to use this truth that they have discovered in order to save them further punishment, further suffering, or further pain. So the wisdom that Boethius had assembled to teach others was now taught to him. It was shown to him conclusively that his dreams had not been fables, that his ideals had not been vacuums created by optimism or pessimism, that in reality truth is alive and walks with those who serve it.